Hey, this is comic book artist and letterer Andrew Thomas, aka the Fat Man Who Letters, and you are listening to the True North Country Comics podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics podcast, dedicated to celebrate Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Andrew Thomas about his comic book projects and exhibiting at Brantford Comic Con. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button so be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Taking place on May 9th at the Lions Park Arena, Brantford Comic Con is the ultimate celebration of comics, collectibles, cosplay, and pop culture in Brantford, Ontario. With over 1,000 fans flocking through the doors, it's become a must-attend event for enthusiasts of all ages. The convention brings together a fantastic lineup of talented artists, unique vendors, and passionate cosplayers, creating an unforgettable experience for attendees. Whether you're hunting for rare comics, meeting your favorite creators, or showing off your latest costume masterpiece, Brantford Comic Con is the place to be. Hailing from southwestern Ontario, Andrew Thomas is a comic book artist and letterer, known for his contributions to renowned titles such as Kevin Smith's Quick Stops for Dark Horse, Captain Canuck, Archie Comics, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for IDW, and his groundbreaking Canadian exclusive for Star Trek Strange New Worlds for IDW. In addition to his artistic achievements, Andrew has received recognition for his lettering skills, notably earning the Favorite Letterer Award from Sequential magazine. His lettering expertise has enriched projects such as Masquerade for Dark Horse, Mosley for Boom, Rat Queens for Image, and the critically acclaimed Dead Romans for Image, amassing over 200 lettering credits. Andrew is also the co-creator and artist of the Canadian indie series Orc of the Great White North, celebrated for its distinctive narrative and remarkable artwork. So, without further ado, here's my chat with Andrew Thomas about his comic book projects and exhibiting at Brantford Comic Con. So, Andrew Thomas, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
It's always a pleasure, John. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy fellow, but before I get going with all the questions, I would like to know, what are you reading today?
Well, I just finished, for the second time, I should add, Powerbomb by Daniel Warren Johnson. It's the wrestling series that he did with Image. And it is an absolute fantastic book, very heartwarming. But it's also, pulse pounding, full of action as wrestling kind of goes. So, I enjoyed it so much the first time that, I wanted to reread it again. I highly recommend it.
So you're a big fan of wrestling then?
Oh, I am. Absolutely.
Okay, when did that start?
I would say December 2024, I was invited to a local indie show here in Brantford. And if you've ever been to a local indie show, then I highly recommend it because there's no experience quite like it. And my kids and I got hooked, and this was a perfect opportunity to jump on as WWE was about to launch on Netflix. So we've been watching ever since. And, since then, I've found a deeper, fonder appreciation for the world of professional wrestling, invested, not only in the mainstream, media like WWE, but very focused and very supportive of the local independent scene, especially here in Brantford, where I've been gotten, more involved with them in terms of helping them marketing and, doing graphic design. So one of my side projects is doing wrestling posters for all these little indie promotions. And I'm having a lot of fun doing it because it's outside of, it was outside of my wheelhouse, but I just kept chipping at it, and I've really found a knack for it.
Nice. It's very neat that you're able to find something that you and your family can enjoy together. There aren't too many things in life that you could do together, but that's wonderful. Fantastic. So we recently met up at Toronto Comic Con. I got to ask you, how was that event for you?
Comic Con was great. Those events are always well put together. They're always great for us, and especially the Toronto Comic Con is such a comics focused, show. So they give the spotlights to a lot of local comic creators. So I'm very appreciative of that, to have been given a chance to go hang out and see my, fellow colleagues and talk shop, as it were. Always been great. And I'm looking forward to the Fan Expo in August.
let's talk about you. What is the latest project? What do you have on your drawing board these days that you can talk about?
Hmm. Well, as you know, but maybe listeners might not know, I'm also a comic book letterer, and a lot of my bread and butter is comic book lettering. And I'm currently working on the second volume of Dead Romans from both Fred Kennedy and Nick Marinkovich. The first volume was a smash hit that we got to, do another volume. And I'm working on a couple of projects with writer Rob Guillory, who's actually one of my inspirations and idols. He was the artist for Chew on that run. And then, so he also writes, he did Farmhand, and then we did a book called Mosley together for Boom. But now we're doing a new series called Innards with Ignition Press. And the first issue comes out in May, and that's going to be a mini series, like about 5 or 6 issues. And I'm also working on a large graphic novel with him that hasn't been announced yet, but I'm excited because getting to work with Rob it's awesome. It's just like one of those moments where it's like, pinch me, I've been such a fan of his because of his work on Chew, and then getting to do this, it's just like holy cow.
That sounds pretty exciting. That's neat.
Yeah, but just recently announced, I actually did a exclusive variant cover for Star Trek Starfleet Academy, the new show, and that particular book is actually going to be a exclusive to Vulcan, which is a Star Trek based convention in Vulcan, Alberta. And that's going to be exclusive just to the show, and that's at the end of July. I'll also be there as well too. But like getting to do this makes it my third Star Trek project that I've worked on, and being a lifelong Trekkie myself, it's just again another one of those pinch me moments.
Yeah, that is pretty exciting. I remember we met up at one of the events and you said you had gotten, because you did a work on Strange New Worlds comic book and you got Anson Mount to do the signature on the book. Was that a highlight too for you?
Oh yeah, Toronto Comic Con a few years back, and I got Anson Mount to sign it, who plays Captain Pike. I also got Ethan Peck's signature, who plays Spock,
Yeah.
and Christina Chong, who plays Lieutenant Lon Noonien Singh.
Wow.
And yeah, and so it's like my goal is to eventually get the entire cast to sign my copy. So I, slowly but surely, and it's one of those shows that really, really resonates with me, and I'm very emotionally invested because, again, not only my lifelong love for Star Trek, but it feels like such a return to form in terms of the way it's formatted. And, it feels very much like classic Star Trek, but it's also got like the modern character developments and the overarching character stories throughout the season. I even had an opportunity to visit the set in Toronto to see the Strange New World sound stages.
That must have been cool.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was very surreal. I have a friend who worked one of the set designers, and he invited me in, and I brought my kids and my wife, and he gave us like a personal tour of all the sets. So we got to, see the bridge, and we actually got to sit in the captain's chair and see all the major sets. And he would give us, a very in-depth tour as to like the making of like how certain props were made and like little Easter eggs, things that you wouldn't actually see on TV, but it's like they're kind of hidden in the background. And I'm like, this is super cool. One of the most humorous things that I learned was a lot of the furniture that they gotten for like the tent forward lounge area was from IKEA. They just bought some furniture from IKEA, and they kind of gave it a little shine, or a little they made a few alterations, and yeah, then they ended up using that for the sets, and which I thought was really funny. Yeah, so that was just again another one of those moments where it's like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, I can't believe I'm, my privilege to be sitting here on the actual captain's chair or on the bridge, and getting to see these things that I've fallen in love with so long ago.
Very nice. I want to switch gears a wee bit and talk about the tools. I remember we talked about this way in the past, but I wonder if you could give us an update. What tools do you use to create the books that you work on?
So if I'm doing like comic book lettering, then I'm using Adobe Illustrator exclusively. As a matter of fact, most of my digital tools are all Adobe products. So Illustrator for the lettering, Photoshop for any digital illustrations. If I'm doing cover work, or if I'm doing any interior stuff like that. If I'm doing your typical pencil to paper, I started using these. They're called Zebra brand fine tip markers, and this is actually a tip that I got from Rob Guillory. He uses it, and he mentioned it on his YouTube channel where he was talking about his tools. And I'm like, those look great, and so I gave them a try, and now I swear by them.
Nice. Now, you mentioned you use Adobe for the lettering. Do you have the opportunity to create your own fonts as you're doing the lettering process?
So I have created my own font for a couple of books before. But for the most part, is I purchase all the fonts and licenses from Blambots or Comic Craft. They have like an enormous library of dialogue fonts, sound effects, captions, robotic, what have you. And then even like unique brushes, so like to kind of give those balloons a little bit more a rough organic look, or something that looks a little more freehand, or something that looks like the balloon strokes were done by a pen. So like there's differences in the weight of the lines. So yeah, for the most part, that's what it is. It's just like I have built myself a nice little library of fonts and other tools that I can use, and I have a basic template that I start from scratch for every project, and I just kind of pick and choose what I'm using. Then there you go, and then that would be the style guide for that particular book.
Very good. Well, we are talking because you're going to be exhibiting at Brantford Comic Con, and I'm wondering, what do you like most about that event?
Well, Brantford Comic Con, definitely a soft spot in my heart because I'm also help run the show. So I'm very much involved behind the scenes in terms of like I do all the visual marketing, so all the posters, guest announcements. I do the websites. Anything visual is usually me. I'm also I do the floor plan. Like there's a lot, a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So it's important to me because number one, I live here. These local community events are very important. Brantford definitely has, I feel like, the most talented or creative people per capita than anywhere else. And I think it's just an opportunity to let some of that shine. It's wild to think that, up until this point, that Brantford has never had anything like that. And today's day and age, I think it's where, especially in Ontario, where there's definitely more shows per capita than anywhere else in the country, I think that there is, a need for community involvement and for these kind of events for to kind of get together and share their love for pop culture. And when we did it last year, people came out in droves, and you could tell that they were hungry for it. So we're happy to do it again this year. We've expanded this year by like 25%, and we've got even more guests coming. So it's going to be a staple in Brantford.
That's cool. I spoke with Steve McGinnis, who's going to be exhibiting. You're going to be exhibiting. Any other creators you want to call out who attendees might want to venture and see?
Absolutely. I mean, we can do a quick rundown of our big guests, but as in terms of creators, we have Ken Lashley will be at Brantford Comic Con, as well as the one and only Mike Ruth. In addition, that will round out our creative guests. However, I would be remiss if I didn't shout out some of the local vendors and comic creators that will be there. Scott Wojcik from CBTM Comics is going to be there. Eric Oaksbury from Alls Cherry. They're doing great things with their books, and so they will be vending there as well, along with Jeff McClinchy and Brian Anstey. And there's just so many amazing local talents coming out. It's going to be one of the bright spots of Artist Alley. Our main guests coming down, Brian O'Halloran from Clerks. He played Dante, as well as Dylan Playfair. If anyone's a fan of Letterkenny, he played Riley in that show. Ming Chen's coming back, and then because Brantford is also a big wrestling town, we're continuing the tradition with our wrestling guests, which we're having WCW legend Vampiro, which is a big deal because he doesn't do a lot of Canadian events, and I'm pretty sure it's his first Canadian convention, at least the first Canadian Comic Con. That would make us 2 for 2 because last year we hosted Danhausen, and that was his first Canadian convention. And then he went on to become the new WWE superstar. So we're very proud of that.
Wow, that's exciting. It sounds like a little bit of something for everybody.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, with everything that you got on the go, I mean, you've got projects galore. Where do you recommend that people go online to find out more about your current and your future work?
Oh, the best place is just my Instagram. It's probably where I post the most, and that's the Fat Man Who Letters, and that's the best place to get a hold of me.
Thanks to Andrew for the chat. You can discover more about Andrew Thomas online at thefatmanwholetters.weebly.com and on Instagram at thefatmanwholetters. You can discover more about Andrew, the other exhibitors, plus activities at the event by visiting BrantfordComicCon.com. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations with creators about making comic books and graphic novels. Also, we encourage you to subscribe via the website so be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media platforms, and you're encouraged to send any and all feedback to john@truenorthcountrycomics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics Podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2026.